Hey everybody, this is Bradley Benner with Semantic Mastery, and I've got Marco on with me today. What's up, Marco?
Hey, what's up, man? I'm really looking forward to this one. I've been singing Jeffrey's praises for weeks now,
Oh
and
man.
I finally get to come on live with him. So
Oh
Yeah,
man,
'cause
I'm
I don't
honored,
think,
guys.
yeah. I was gonna say I don't think Marco's been on the previous two that we've done with you, Jeffrey. So with that, we've got Jeffrey Smith on with us again today, guys. This is now the third time we've had him on. The first one was an epic fail.
Right. You learn a
But
lot.
that was a combination of it was primarily our fault, but then we had some issues with the presentation as well. But then we did a second round of it, and it went much better, but still some slight difficulties. So this is our third time. This is our third attempt at this, and Jeffrey's still nervous.
Definitely nervous as a horn church. Don't want to say it too much, but yeah, it's good.
But don't be. And here's why. This is why I tell Jeffrey not to be nervous, because what he's got today is he'll be going through his SEO Bootcamp training and talking about all that's included in the course. Obviously, guys, there's an offer at the end of this, so make no mistake about it. But what's amazing is that the training that he's put together in SEO Bootcamp. Marco and I have both been touting this for pretty much months now on all the Hump Day Hangouts and everything else, because for many years we've had our followers ask us repeatedly to create an on-page SEO course, and we've just never done it. Not a course specifically for that. We've had a bunch of training in various other courses about on-page stuff, but nothing specifically for how to structure websites properly and all that. And it's been on the to-do list for several years. But once I ran across Jeffrey Smith's SEO Bootcamp training myself, I said, wow, we don't need to do this. It would be stupid, because there's already a product out there that we can't beat. We can't match it or top it. So we brought Jeffrey on. I reached out to him and said, hey man, it's a great course. We'd love to have you present it to our audience. And he did. And it's just been a great hit. We've had a lot of people that have said how powerful it is, how much of a good course it is. Marco and I both agree. I haven't been 100% through the entire course. I've been through bits and pieces, and been able to glean what I've needed from it, which makes it incredibly useful. And I know Marco's got a lot to say about it too. Marco, what do you think about it?
absolutely. I mean, just the keyword training alone is worth the price of admission. Because I mean, other than the stuff that you've done inside our mastermind, and that's for just our mastermind, I've yet to see something that covers it as thoroughly as he does, and offer the multiple tools. I mean, you'll see people pushing an affiliate tool, right? And that affiliate tool, as they're doing their keyword training, and that's not necessarily the best tool. But once I saw him say Power Suggest Pro, he had me.
Yeah, that's a good one, man. That's a good one. I mean, it's worth its weight in gold too. It's a nice tool. If you're using like wildcard modifiers, particularly if you want to find some stuff, it's going to reveal every market. I actually loaded up a little sample of that for a little bit later. But yeah, awesome. Good stuff.
When I saw the tools and Power Suggest, and I went through that video, then that made me go through the entire keyword training module.
Nice.
And then I went over and I started looking at some other stuff, which then made me go through that entire module. So that's how I'm doing it. Cool. I'll go and catch something, will catch my eye, and I need to see this, and then it without question makes me go through the entire module. And I've been through the keyword training several times, as a matter of fact, because I'm going to put our RYS, Write Your Shit Reloaded,
VA, of course,
through that, so that he does the keyword training according to how Jeffrey teaches it. Because I think by far the best way to do it is through that. So I mean, and I'm not just saying that because we're making an offer for SEO Bootcamp. I would say it regardless. This is by far some of the best SEO training I've seen. I've been at this for 15 years, so you can imagine how much shit I've been through.
Yes, definitely, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So with that, since we've massaged your ego pretty well here.
Yeah, I'm ready, man. At this point, I've got...
That was a confidence booster, man, so that you're not so nervous.
I'm doing one-arm push-ups over here, man, and I'm not going to make anybody drop and give me 20 for that. I'm just saying, because it's a boot camp. You never know what could happen, man.
That's awesome. So I'm going to turn this over to you, and I'm going to kind of mute my mic, and I'll be in the background. I'll throw in the occasional random comment and try to keep it interesting. But other than that, man, the floor is yours.
All right, cool. Well, just as a little, just to kick it off properly, I'm going to go through a couple slides. And then after that, we'll jump into some over-the-shoulder training. All right. So pretty much the objective of this webinar and the real goal is for you to basically learn how to outrank your competition, find a unique positional advantage, and find where people are spending the money by using keyword research, competitor analysis, and then literally build a site that ranks using site architecture and on-page factors without having to rely on backlinks or social signals. All right, now my goal is for you to have a solid understanding of the SEO process holistically so that you can either audit your own web properties or create new ones with utter confidence in your ability to essentially rank for the most profitable keywords and questions that people are asking in your market. Now, to stay to the end, I'll share a case study where we ranked one of our clients for over 700 keywords in a very competitive space. We're talking real estate in Los Angeles against massive authority sites. And we basically used the principles that we're going to describe in our process. And we also did that without relying on backlinks. Just as a little story about this is the same strategies that we use to rank on the first page with the keyword SEO in the number 4 and 5 position. So to put it lightly, this stuff really works. And we're also going to show you another example of one of our clients in the security space who's also mopping up market share as a result of this process. All right, you're probably asking what makes it different. So I've been doing this about 23 years, and what really makes this course different is rather than being super nerdy and chock full of industry jargon, it's really just take things that are super complicated and we make it simple. So we focus on fundamental strategies and tactics that literally demystify the whole process. So it's really the KISS model of SEO. We just try to keep it simple and break it down. And so essentially we've broken things down into a simple, easy to understand format so that anybody who has a sincere desire to learn can literally check out these over-the-shoulder videos and then after that jump into an arsenal of different tools with a practical process. And so ultimately, the truth is that knowledge is power, and the more knowledge you have about how SEO works, the better you are. And I want you to be empowered, and I don't want people to have to literally blindly trust somebody to do things that you can do for yourself. Now, I'm not saying that having others do things for you is a bad thing. If it's good and they know what they're doing, then it's essentially time saved and the results that you can both benefit from. But rather than having to put yourself in a compromising position, it's really about the difference between going to an auto mechanic and saying, something in my engine's making noise, and could you fix it for me? I'm not sure if I need a new engine or not, versus, hey, I'm losing 46% compression on my valves and I need a new gasket. So this is the power in knowing how and what to diagnose, and this is what I'm referring to here. So one more thing quickly is it's really the us against them thing. When you think about it, if you ask Google, they really don't want you to know how to optimize your site. They'd rather just sell you ads all day rather than have you figure this stuff out. And so that's literally how they make their billions. So we know that ads convert less than organic traffic. So if SEO is done right, it's still the most effective way to get qualified traffic, leads, and sales to your website. So the objective of all this is to empower you to do your own SEO. And there's nothing worse than having to depend on somebody just because you don't know. So having said that, who is this training for? Technically, this training is for any business owner who wants to create an in-house SEO team or leverage the teams that they already have in place for their marketing, who wants to create a unified effort with SEO with their marketing team. It's also for web designers who have clients that need to learn how to do SEO so they can make solid suggestions on what to do next. It's perfect for affiliate marketers who are looking to build evergreen niche sites who need an edge against more established competitors. And it's even for agencies, which actually comprise a large percentage of members inside of our training, because they get to learn a different array of foundational techniques and get some insights on some killer tools and how to use them. But essentially, it's for anyone who wants to learn proven techniques that when woven together and implemented properly can save time and shave the time to rank from years to months and months to weeks, depending on your keywords. So now more than ever, particularly with machine learning and algorithms shaping rankings, communicating solid topics and themes to search engines can expedite the authority process, and it's that authority and relevance that creates rankings. Now, we're going to touch on that more as we get into the training, but you're probably wondering, who the hell is this guy that's talking to you? So a little bit about myself. My name is Jeffrey Smith, and I started doing this back 23 years ago. And so back at that time, there were search engines like Lycos and Hotbot, Go and Yahoo Directory. There wasn't even really a search engine to be found. And I basically invented a product. And so I came up with an electronic air fragrance diffuser we actually ran out of money trying to market, trying to manufacture the product. And so when it's time to go to market, I basically had to learn how to build a website and do SEO. So I started doing that stuff back then. As a result of that, we got distribution in 17 countries with that product. That product later grew into a global product development firm, and now it's making well over 8 figures a year and doing well. After that, I was able to literally retire for a couple of years, and then came out of retirement in 2006. And then I started a digital marketing agency called SEO Design Solutions, started blogging about all things SEO. Got to the first page for the keyword SEO. It took 2 years of hard work of using on-page and just building that authority that we're talking about, using that topical authority. After that, I was able to help some major brands like Time, American Express, foodandwine.com, Real Simple, and Michael's to carve out some amazing keywords for uber competitive phrases like wine, wedding invitations, SSL certificates for some other clients and things like that. And then as a result of that, basically, we created the SEO Ultimate plugin and the SEO Design Framework really as a way to expedite the process of how we were doing SEO for ourselves. WordPress was actually a new thing back then. Instead of having to create custom code for everything, we just decided to basically create our own framework and our own plugin so that we could literally toggle things on or off based upon the client's needs. And so when you're dealing with enterprise clients, particularly, they typically have a number of different content management systems. So we were just like, hey, let us create a beacon using WordPress. And so those tools essentially evolved from that. So you might be using SEO Ultimate. Just so you guys know, as part of the offer a little bit later, we're going to be including both the framework and SEO Ultimate Plus as part of this deal, so you can get a chance to use those tools yourself as well. All right. So done a lot of things right, which was basically getting ranked for the first page of on the first page of SEO. Did a lot of things wrong, such as learned how to basically create a 700 site. I had PBNs back then, so basically we had our own blog networks and we were doing a lot of things like that. And essentially, as a result of that, you learn how to create penalties, you learn how to relieve penalties, but learning how to create a footprint and trigger penalties and relieve them was one of the things that was basically it happened because search engine algorithms are real. But if you've been around as long as I have, you learn that you can actually unwind those things. And so you make some mistakes, but we all take lumps, but ultimately this is how we learn. All right. So after doing this for about 23 years, I did want to say one more thing about that. We made a point about penalties, and really they're just algorithms. They're essentially filters. There's no need to fear the animals. We see the things like penguin and panda and possum and rank brain and all this, but ultimately they're just filters. So, it's really about picking the right keywords and using them in a specific way that can expedite the authority process. And authority and relevance are really the underpinnings of rankings. Another thing that I learned is the more specific, refined, and topically relevant that your content and on-page SEO is, the easier it is to outrank less authoritative or less optimized competitors, particularly when you're dealing with people that have been around for 10, 15 years and you're trying to offset their ranking factors. So we really preach that site architecture and using the right kind of site architecture for the right type of application can really have tremendous impact on rankings. And we'll get into a little bit of that later on as well. Another thing I learned is once you become a topical authority, that Google follows you. Now, in the beginning, when you're first starting off, you're basically it's a popularity contest. You're trying to impress upon a search engine why you should be considered a subject matter expert. And so the fastest way to do that, if we go back to looking at how the algorithms really are designed, it's based upon language. Language is the cornerstone. The search engine has to basically adhere to language. And so when you use topicality, meaning that when you use synonyms and related phrases that it can understand, because it's just basically breaking the page apart. It's looking at it. It's looking at a bag of words, and it's trying to figure out what those term weights mean. And so, for example, if I'm talking about the word diamond on a page, and if I see the word shiny appear somewhere else, it thinks, okay, well, there's two phrases that have co-occurrence. So they're talking about a physical diamond. It's got luster, it's shiny, etc. If you see the word hot dog or mitt on the page, it then skews that data, and it now knows you're talking about like hot dogs and mitts. Well, that's baseball. So you have to understand that based on the way that you construct your content, it actually creates that topical authority. So after you cross that tipping point, saying that, once you've exceeded a certain amount, now for every keyword, there's a given threshold, and we'll get into competitive keyword thresholds later. But for things that are, more broad and like the long tail keywords and questions, they're typically under 50,000 competing pages in Google. So you can rank for those very easily. But what I was getting at here is the more you add content to your site on a specific topic, those term weights create more authority. Eventually, what happens is Google begins to follow you. It's like, instead of it looking for other websites, it's saying, you know what? They have a high term frequency and a high term weight for that topic. They've answered the question. There's a low bounce rate when people hit this site. So we're going to start giving them more traffic because they really know what they're talking about. So that's what I was getting at here, that, we're going to break these three things down as we go along, but really that's the cornerstone of rankings. And so here's the things that I discovered the hard way. Basically, that nothing cuts through clutter more like topics are organized into themes and then reflected intelligently into your site architecture. Basically, prior to even trying to promote it or get backlinks or social signals, it's really about creating that topical theme. And so this is what most people do. It's like they want to go out there, they want to get their 5-page website, and they want to defy the algorithms and basically try to kick all their competitors to the curb. But it's really, you have to know how to build it the right way and pay attention to some of the strategies I'm going to share with you. And so, for example, most people, they do this. They go out, they build a site without SEO knowledge, or they don't know what can trip up potential rankings or suppression penalties. After that, they wait only to figure out that the site's being completely ignored by search engines and has no traffic. At that point, they typically panic, start fidgeting with things, make countless tweaks and minor iterations, basically just acting like one of these little guys over here running around with their head cut off, versus developing authority systematically and appeasing the most important metrics that create results. And so now we can actually get into the easy way. So it's not really that complicated, but if you do something at the wrong time or the wrong way, then it either won't produce the results, and if it does, it can actually take a lot longer to get traction. And even more importantly, to get return on investment, which can be either your time or your money. So essentially, the SEO process breaks down to finding the right keywords and questions that people are asking, determining the search intent behind those searches, and then to target the segments of that topic specifically. Next, you want to build that into your site architecture around the most important phrases. You want to create a content plan that highlights all those topical nodes, or rather peaks and valleys of that content that's required to cross that tipping point so that you become a qualified subject matter expert, just like we had sort of mentioned before. And then after that, you want to apply all the appropriate on-page tweaks, which we'll show you inside the course. And so after that, it's then time to get into automating, leveraging social signals, backlinks, networks, and things of that nature. So in the past, like I said, we're almost to the slides, guys, and we're going to get into the fun stuff. I know this is the tedious part, but long story short, I've helped some Fortune 500 companies rank for nearly impossible keywords of applying the same principles, strategies, and tactics that we have inside the training. Some of those keywords were, like I said, wine, SSL certificates, wedding invitations, and the like. And ironically, one of the main things that we found was a common theme that we discovered again and again was the lack of appropriate site architecture to truly encapsulate the topic in such a way that a search engine could really understand what that topic was and reward them. So much of our time was actually spent tweaking site architecture to reflect and amplify the different themes and those topics in the site, and which you'll learn is so important regardless of market or industry, because it plays back into that topicality that we talked about, where language being the forefront or the baseline, topicality is next, authority is the top of the pyramid. When you work with these three things in tandem, there's really, it's just a matter of time before you chip away. And the more laser-like you are, you can either be a laser or a flashlight. The more laser-like you are about your topics, the easier it's going to be for you to rank. So part of the legal team, they've made me say this, but, results are not typical. There are always variables outside of our control that contribute to rankings. Every domain that has a history could have inherent issues outside of the scope of this training. So just because I've ranked for countless sites in the past doesn't mean that it'll work for you. So, all right, here's the 3 secrets that I found. I know it's going to break some belief systems. Now, I'm a firm believer in the 80-20 rule, but 80% of your time should be spent on keyword research because it's going to produce the most results. It's really about understanding the conversation. Once you understand the conversation, it gives you a competitive advantage, because then building out the site is not that difficult. It's really about once you go through the training, you map out, you find all the tools, you conduct your keyword research, you find the nodes that really matter, you apply different modifiers like best, leading, affordable, compare, etc. Point some tools at your competitors, find all their keywords. At that point, you can refine it down, and then you can build a blueprint. But essentially, a blueprint is like a bunch of guys don't just show up to build a house. You start with the blueprint, you map everything out first. And then the construction part, even though it's tedious, just think how tedious it would be without a blueprint. And so that's what I'm saying, about 80% of your time should be spent on keyword research. All right. The next thing I found is really that leveraging site architecture and in-depth content properly can shave months off of the time to rank. And so rather than going out there with the whole spray and pray method of before and trying to create all these little, bullshit 300-word articles that you think are going to create some kind of impact, it's much better to actually create a 3,000-word article that has all those topical nodes in it. And so that's going to provide a lot more impact for your rankings, as well as creating keyword stemming, which is really having your pages rank for more keywords versus a very narrow stream of phrases. And the third thing that I've found is that the more granular and specific you are, meaning the less room you leave for search engines to assume your website pages and topic, the better. And that goes into markup. And so disambiguation is a big thing, meaning that if there's a word like diamond on the page, you want to make sure that you have the proper markup, or you're linking out to some link data that would suggest that this is a physical diamond, not a baseball diamond, etc. So there's ways that you can do that with your code, and a lot of stuff that we're going to show you as well. Or at least inside the training, we get into that. I don't know how much I'm going to have to be able to show you here. So, all right. So let me think here. I've already covered these three things. You're probably wondering what's inside this bootcamp, right? So we're pretty much going to show you how to find the best keywords using competitor market and keyword analysis, and literally show you how to strategically outposition your competition, siphon their best keywords. After that, we're going to show you how to structure your website based on topics to increase relevance and rank for hundreds of keywords. Next, in the tactical content blueprint, we really cover on how to write optimized content that ranks by design, not by chance. And there's a couple of tools that we share that really allow you to take the guesswork out of it, because it just basically, you can point them at your competitors and see all the phrases, modifiers, synonyms they're using. And you can actually put your pages in there against that tool and see where you're a little light, so that it really gives you the ability to model topical relevance like you wouldn't believe. And I'll show you an example of how by using that tool, we're able to just capture phrases that rank by design as well. So, all right. So the first module, we've actually broken these down into 5 modules. And so 5 steps or 5 modules, depending on how you look at it. But essentially, the first one's called Market Recon, and that's where we teach you how to identify the keywords and questions that make the most sense for your business. And as part of this process, we'll show you how to perform in-depth market and competitor analysis to reverse engineer your competitors' most cherished and profitable keywords. After that, we're going to show you how to integrate them into your site architecture. Now, some of the things we can do, we're going to jump over to the over-the-shoulder training. I just want to walk you guys through sort of what the modules are really quick. But Market Recon is really about finding the most relevant keywords, modifiers, how to use leverage the power of the knowledge graph, which is the Google also asks. It's just basically giving you the questions that people are asking. The Google Suggest API. There's tools that we're going to cover, like Answer the Public, that do that as well. And then when you leverage those back in your content, you're essentially giving it what they want. So that's some of the things that you're going to really take away from Market Recon. After that, we're going to basically go into Site Architecture Intelligence, which is the second module that really shows you, how and why, which keywords fit where in the site, the different types of site architecture. And I mean flat site architecture, which is things that are close to the root, using subdomains, using subfolders for, creating a topical site architecture, or siloing. So we're going to different applications like that. And so once basically you complete that module, you understand how the different words, hold on a second, excuse me. Pardon me, guys. So what I was getting at is that in the Site Architecture Intelligence, after that, it's really going to show you how to leverage and expedite topical relevance and authority. Okay, so after that, here's some of the things that we cover in here. Basically, template optimization is a huge thing. If you have, 100 links on your sidebar, if you're using mega menus and things like that, it can really sabotage the relevancy of the text to link ratios, as well as just the content ratios of your site. So we talk about things like that. really the main focus is making sure that you have a preferred landing page for your keywords, making sure your URL structure is tight, cleaning up any template or pagination issues, avoiding thin pages. So these are the kind of things that we cover in Site Architecture Intelligence. And then after that, once you've basically got your plan of action, you found the phrases, you've decided what you're going to do with your site architecture, then it's time to actually create some content. And so that's what we call the tactical content blueprint. And so inside of this module, we basically share a variety of approaches to content application and topical modeling. And we show you how search engines read, interpret, and score your content, and how you can write in-depth content that's both engaging for readers and search engines alike. So basically, once you understand how the different words in your pages overlap, and we talked a little bit about that, but there's things like multivariate shingle analysis. It doesn't have to be nerdy. It's pretty much like shingles on a roof. Basically, they overlap, and every word is like a shingle, and it comprises the whole roof. So when you think about topical modeling and how they interpret that, you're really going to learn how to write it in such a way your content will really create that impact where anyone else who's not doing that, you're essentially going to kick them to the curb or leave them by the wayside. So after that, we'll show you essentially other things such as different types of content. If you're creating content that's engaging for social, we'll give you a couple tools that you can use to find the most compelling headlines and things of that nature, ideas for rich content, etc. But after you've got your content structure, now that you've written that, you've actually got your site architecture in place, you found the keywords, well, now it's time to basically optimize your pages. And so this is where we get into the fourth module that we call on-page SEO Ops. And so this is really the technical on-page stuff. And so this is where we have like the fundamentals of metadata, internal linking, how to consolidate rankings for specific keywords based on how you link. We'll show you how to use structured markup, along with other vital information that search engines use to pass along relevancy. So some cool things that we get into is how to use IDs and header tags, which is pretty cool. Now, I know you guys have probably seen jump links before. When you click a link and it jumps to a different part of the page, we can leverage those in a very powerful way, as well as the questions that we had talked about before about people asking questions. There's this whole thing about where the market intersects, where there's really two different types of keywords that you have to be concerned with. One of them is educational, people that just want to know more about something. And then there's the commercial and transactional keywords. So they make there's a distinct difference between the two. But we'll show you how to leverage questions to get those people in. And then based on that, you can actually use the way that you add them to your header tags to send them to certain segments of the site that are really ideal for conversion. So really cool stuff. Structured markup also incorporated into this module. And after that, you're ready to get into some off-page stuff. So before we do that, you can just take a look at some of the things that are inside of the on-page ops. And so cool techniques for scraping competitors' most compelling titles and descriptions, finding out what their call to action is. It's very important now because Google just increased them and added another 160 characters to your meta description area. So right there, you've almost got a 300-word article. So you can start to use this for conversion to really get those click-throughs going. So
when did that happen?
I think it was about a month and a half ago.
Really?
Yeah. So they've, you might even, literally, it seems like it's almost commensurate with authority. If you look up anything with Moz, it's almost like a little miniature article in there. But yeah, they've increased the title tag, they've increased the meta description tag. So this is it's an important thing to pay attention to. So there's some really cool little techniques in there for that. We talk about the power of header tags, about how you should use your canonical tags, your meta robots for blocking spiders or determining which pages rank where. The value of basically deploying different content types, so PDFs, videos, rich embeds. Really wild stuff. I know you guys are all up into that, man, and I can't like reveal too much about it, but there's some pretty interesting tags that we just had. A gentleman that joined us named John Britsios. He joined us in the war room, and this guy he's just an HTML god. He showed me stuff. I've never even heard of half of these tags. And so he was showing me how to use the rel equals alternate tag with some really interesting tweaks and twists that you can do. There's a really cool website that's called diffbot where you can actually mark up your site in JSON LD, use the rel equals alternate tag to get some real powerful ranking factor and basically split you know, instead of having one page of just HTML, you can use your PDFs and things like that. So just to give you an example, we used to be one of the first people that used the SEO Ons tool way back in the day. They're now called Market Brew, but they had this. They basically created a modeling tool that could essentially show you where you're going to rank in Google 3 to 4 months out. And I don't know how they did it, but these guys are serious Carnegie Mellon nerds. And this tool, when we ran the tool a lot for one of our clients, which was an attorney, we found that the majority of their site had PDFs. So they had a number of PDFs that had the majority of their ranking factor, because a typical page might be like 25 to 50. Some of these PDF pages had thousands on the link flow scale, meaning how important they were for ranking. And then when we looked at these PDFs, for example, none of them had any backlinks back to the homepage. So we just went in, we edited the PDF, we dropped a few internal links back to the page, back to the homepage, and next thing we know, those clients jumped from page 6 to page 1 for the majority of their keywords because of that, the fact that you've got to appeal to the spiders, but you also have to appeal to the human readers as well. So there's a lot you can do with different content types. And whenever you use rich content like that, when you're using videos, rich embeds, and PDFs, you have that opportunity to really leverage that spider bait. So go into some stuff like that inside the on-page SEO ops. And then after that, when you've built out your content, like I said, it's optimized, it's in the right place in the site architecture, and you've got the best questions at that point, then it's time to go into the off-page stuff. And this is really just an offshoot on using IFTTT and Web 2.0 properties. You know, we've been playing with this stuff. You guys really revolutionized it. It was a lot simpler when we did it, but I know that it's a real pain in the ass. And I would just suggest that if anybody, we're trying to do it, and we do like lay it out, but honestly, you're just better off going over to SERP and buying a syndication network, and then just, you know, having it go to town. Or
amen, because you don't want to spend the day and a half that it takes to set it all up, you know?
Yeah, man, it's just ridiculous, you know, but it's there. So that's some of the things we cover in the off-page SEO ops. So, you know, we're talking about IFTTT. There's some things. I'll probably add a module that shows you how to do it with some other tools like Zapier, but that's pretty much the overview. So now, finally, after like a half an hour of these boring ass slides, let's jump over to some over-the-shoulder training. All right. So I'm trying to think, where should we start? Let me go ahead and kick this off. All right. So what I have here is, this is the mind map tool. Some of the things that we're looking at with in the market recon module. And so these are some of the questions that come up. You know, what are the best keywords for my business? Do I build geo-targeted modifiers or subdomains around them? Which modifiers or synonyms are proven for traffic? So there's something we can do. We're just going to do a couple of drills. I've decided to use a very, it's a broader market. It's finance. And so if we're looking at basically becoming active in this space, one of the first things we could do is just conduct a typical search. And so I'm using investment fund. Now you see there's a number of different things. We've got rich data over here. We've got featured snippets popping up. We have the people also asked. Now this is what I was referring to, that one of the first things we like to do inside of the market recon module is just find some basics, conduct some basic searches, try to find what modifiers. You can see the word, you know, top, private, what is, you can see questions right here, types of. So these are the kind of things that you want to pay attention to. This allows you to essentially re-drill later on when it's time, when you're basically collecting more data on the topic. So we have a module that's just dedicated to that, or a video that's dedicated to that. After that, what you'll learn is the further that you drill into these, the more questions you're going to find. And so there's a real simple and easy way that you can, instead of having to go through and do it like this, you can actually use a tool that's called Answer the Public. And so if you go to Answer the Public and you basically, you know, click a new search, what happens when you ask or you place your primary keyword in is it shows you right off the bat, there's 151 questions. Now I used the word investment fund prior to this, so I'll just go ahead and do that now, because I have a process here. And it's instead of you literally having to go through and painstakingly look page by page, it just provides you with that question there. So, you know, can I start an investment fund? Can anyone start an investment fund? Which investment funds to choose? So one of the things is, I like what it does. It uses a number of different modifiers like who, what, how, it compares. And so let's just go ahead and jump over to the Excel spreadsheet. And so if you look here and you wanted to determine, since we're trying to rank for the keyword investment fund, or let's just say we're trying to rank for investment fund manager, this is where you're going to find the other relevant questions. And if you were curious about how to find out, what the real threshold of this keyword was, and I'm just showing you some very basic stuff for those of you who've never seen this before. And just go into conduct a Google search, place the keyword in quotation marks, and it's essentially going to give you phrase match. And so it's essentially telling you that there's about, well, this even at this point, it seems like it's a little skewed here. Let me do one thing with a question mark, because it was trying to tell me that there are 470 million competing pages for that keyword, which I doubt it. All right, so it's not going to let me look at this keyword. For some reason, typically, whenever you place quotation marks around a keyword, it's going to show you phrase match. For some reason, this one's kicking it back. But the point is that we wanted to take a look at the top ranking result and find out just how much topical depth that they've dedicated to this. And you can see before how we talked about the basis of language and topicality. You notice that this is the sort of the silo term. This is the main term that they're trying to rank for, but you can see supply of capital, money market, hedge funds, mutual funds. All these things are actually leading to other pages which are relevant. So they've done their homework. They've built all the topical nodes. They've created relevant headers to encompass the peaks and valleys of the conversation. But let's just say that I want to find out for this website how many times they've literally dedicated a phrase to that. So what I would do is conduct a Google search with the site command, place the domain, and then in quotation marks, I would place the keyword. Not rocket science, but it's just telling me in a very specific way how many relevant pages they've dedicated. So they have 1,270 instances or 1,270 pages that have been skewed to rank for that keyword. And so what you'll notice is that every keyword like this has a threshold. Now, typically, I don't know why that question didn't work when you just use quotation marks, unless Google's changed something. Investment fund has about 8.3 million competing pages, meaning that there's that many pages that are competing in the index for that phrase. Out of that, if you wanted to look at the bottom of the barrel, it's not really that many pages. After a while, what's going to happen is if you continue to scroll to the very end, eventually you're going to reach the cap where it says, we have enough sites. It's basically going to create a duplicate content filter and filter out the rest of the sites. But this is really just a matter of showing you just how steep a conversation is. And so every market rather has a tipping point like that. And you want to find where you can enter that market. And so we typically tell people when they're first getting started, now this will be done in a second, just to give you an example, we're already 340 pages in. It's at 8.3 million competing pages. Most phrases tip off around the 500 mark. I rarely see anything go all the way to the end because at a certain point, Google's like, you know what, we've got enough information. We've already seen pretty much all we're going to see. It's a lot of duplicate content. We're at 45 now. Let's just see. All right. Okay. We are at the end. Right now, in order to show you the most relevant results, we've omitted some entries very similar to the 450. So you're really up against 450 websites for that keyword. And so that's what I was getting at here. So you can use this as a, one way to try to determine a barrier to entry. But more importantly, we know that they have 1,200 plus keywords for that phrase. So you know that if you're going to go after that, it's going to take you a while, and you're going to have to create a lot of in-depth content. So one of the ways you can do that is by building up questions and answers topically around that phrase. And so this is where things like this come into play. So what are investment fund classes? So the objective would be is that you would use content like this, and these phrases are typically less than 50,000 competing pages, meaning that if you were to implement them in your site architecture anywhere, if your site has any inkling of topicality, it's already going to start ranking. You can rank typically things like that are 50,000 competing pages or less with the blog post, or if you have some topicality. So we suggest, okay, so for example, this phrase has 3,000 competing pages, right? And you can see that it's Quora. So even though you're going to be up against a lot of topical authorities like that, you can still rank for something like that. But the point is that you want to ball roll all those types of questions. You can either do it one of two ways. You can either create a silo, which is basically like your main phrase, And then you have categories that might be alternatives, like, so it'd be domain.com/investment fund, or domain.com/investment fund is your silo, and then / alternatives. And under the alternatives, you would put all your questions that are talking about alternatives. So that's one way that you can use topical site architecture. But the objective is you can also use all these different types of questions and ball roll them into a massive article. And that's what I was getting at now, is that by creating in-depth content, it's extremely powerful, because what happens is not only we start to rank for all those virtual nodes, but eventually the more competitive keywords will start to rank. And so for a new website just starting out, you want to typically go after things that are 300,000 competing pages or less. And just because, and if you don't have other tools, we try to at least provide a couple different ways you can do this. Then you could literally just, like I said, use quotation marks to show phrase match. So super basic stuff, but you're using Google against itself, 65,000 competing pages. So it's part of the conversation. There's another thing that happens if you use appropriate markup. Now we show you how to use questions and answers schema. And this goes back to that one point that I was talking about the not leaving it to chance. So anytime you have an opportunity to use different tags, to use schema markup, to use link data, to link out, most people are scared to link out. And I tell you this, it's about co-citation, meaning if you're linking to a .gov, a .edu, or somebody that has more authority than you, because you're saying to Google, hey, I might not have all the answers, but this particular website does. It's like the grappling hook. It's literally pulling you up to create that co-citation. And it's really like the way that the web works, because technically you can't go from page to page or from website to website without links. So the link graph is extremely important. So what I was getting at is by using things like that and scaling your authority, eventually, if you have a non-promotional response or answer to whatever that is, and you use appropriate schema markup, which we show you how to do that and cover in the course, you can essentially start to surface in these featured snippets. And this is position 0. This is where a lot of traffic can happen. I can't. Yeah, I can't show the ones that our competitors have, or our clients have. They've asked me not to. But another thing you can do, for example, well, yeah, that's I can't show them that. My friend was just telling me that. All right, so that's just one of the first things that we sort of show you inside of Market Recon. All right, so that's just one node. Let's go back and take a look at some of the other types of training that we're gonna cover in that node. All right, so I've showed you how to basically find the theme, find the most used modifiers in related search. We've talked about, we've talked about the difference between educational and transactional keywords. And so you want to really zoom in on the variations of the keywords that have commercial intent. You look for questions and answers that people also ask. And so we've shown you how to do that by manually walking through and looking at Google, as well as how to record the best questions in a spreadsheet. That's what we suggest, is make a massive spreadsheet, so that way you can continue to re-drill into these types of phrases. After that, you're going to use your answer the public, drill into those phrases. I've showed you how you can use the site : command right now. You can determine the competitive keyword thresholds, which is basically how to use the site : domain and add the keyword. And this sort of just showcases the barrier to entry. We actually were instrumental in Network Empire's DWS algorithm for time to rank. So Matt and I worked for a long time on that. Really good friend of mine, Matt DeCruz, amazing tool. But for example, it would show you for what you needed. And this was basically after years of us doing this stuff. I could say, okay, something that's like 125,000 competing pages, you're going to need 8 pages and 7 backlinks. And so we created some algorithms that really laid that out, but it gave you a wonderful opportunity to look at things in a blueprint format, where you could literally see. Let me show you what a blueprint looks like, just since we're talking about that tool. All right. So for example, we also, we're talking, this is one of our clients. We talked about topical depth and topical breadth. This is really what happens. So this is how we essentially determine the phrases that the client would go after. We drill into all the keywords, we'd find all the related phrases. At that point, we'd see the competing pages, so we could determine the thresholds. I told you we were targeting things that were 300,000 competing pages or less, for example. Over here, if we would look at the suggested backlinks and suggested supporting articles, that's the algorithm that I was referring to. It gave you a really quick baseline that you would know, that you could understand that for the keyword, for example, security tags, you'd have to have at least 16 supporting articles or a really powerful category page or silo with at least 8 backlinks to get ranked for that. So I'll just give you an example. This is one of the clients I wanted to show you from before. And we did some stuff for them and didn't really hear from them for a while and just let everything sort of mature and settle in. Didn't do any backlinks or anything like that. And then I went back to look at the site. Let me just go back to this right here. And we could see that they are now ranking for all the things that we were talking about inside of the blueprint. And it's not any surprise. It's literally, this is intelligent site architecture by design. So what we did is you can see this is a process that we call keyword stemming. This is one of the things we want to promote. That's when one particular page starts to rank for multiple variations. This happens as a result of the way that you link your content, the way that you write your content, and where it sits in the site architecture, as well as what other supporting phrases are around it. So you can see that anything that's related to retail security, merchandise, anti-theft, shoplifting, etc., they're ranking for that as a result of that. And so that's just part of how you sort of own the conversation, but that all starts with intelligent design from, starting with the proper blueprint. And that goes back to that relevance and topical authority. So let me just go back. So even though I started with an example on investment funds, I was just trying to show you some ways that you could use a few of the basic commands. So let's go back and continue to walk through some of these tactics. All right, go here. All right, after that, so this is really just the information gathering phase where you're trying to determine what themes are essentially important to your business, what conversations are occurring, what questions that people are asking. And after that, it's time to build it out. So then we go into the market to site architecture intelligence, where we sort of essentially determine what type of site architecture is best. And so you can use flat site architecture. I'll just give you an example here. Just open a notepad. Flat site architecture would be something like this, where you see domain.com and then your landing pages. So it would be like investment fund, right? That's right there on the root. This is really good. Now, anything that you keep closer to the root, it typically has a tendency to rank really well. Now, the problem is it's really about how you structure your content management system. And this is, very prominent back in the day when HTML was prevalent and sites were made in Dreamweaver and things like that. Pretty much all of your pages were flat. That's just the way it was done. Okay, so then you have the other option. You could use a subdomain. So you could say investment fund. So investment fund domain.com, right? That's the second way you can do it. Now, when you use subdomains, it really allows you to create a very distinct advantage by consulting all the things about that topic in the site. So for example, with CNN, you might see money dot, CNN lifestyles dot, you might see news dot, you might see, all the different topics. So if you have a site that is suitable for using a subdomain strategy, you can do it. You can do that as well. We also have some tactics we're going to share with you where we show you how to use subdomains for local strategies and using syndication in combination with that. Some really powerful stuff that's inside the members area that we've definitely can't really talk about too much here. But that's just another type of an example of how you can leverage your site architecture based upon your ranking objectives. Third thing, domain.com/investment fund. Let's just say investment. And then after that, you would add something like, manager. Now in this case, can you spell it properly? In this case, what we've done is we've actually used what we call topical site architecture, or we've created a silo. Silo meaning that it's really the most, it's like content silos. The way that Bruce Clay described it is if you're in the Midwest, which we are, ironically, and you're driving and off in the distance, you see these huge silos of corn that are sticking out. It's the same way. You want to have your topics stick out from afar so that it's about that disambiguation again, so that a search engine knows, hey, they're talking about investments, that everything in that bin is about investments. So that's how you would use the topical site architecture, right? And so in a very pure way, by doing that, you would only have things that are related. Now, you see how I use the word investment here and then the fund manager there, or funds, etc., because you don't want to repeat different you don't want to repeat the same keywords in your URL. You want to keep that clean. So you have to sort of not over optimize the slugs. You don't want to have the same word investment fund, etc. So that's why I've done that. So that's an example. And then as a result of that, you would continue to create topical content, and you would then build out layers to that. And every time you build an additional layer with whatever page that's behind that, you know, page 2, page 3, page 4, etc., it's actually adding more weight to get this either the silo term ranked or the category. Now in this case, I'm using this would be considered a category. You can take it a step further if we were doing siloing. It's something that we teach in the course. And you could add, and so fund manager would be a category. And now for a supporting article, meaning that's something that's really designed to sort of, you could use it as a blog post or just an informative article. You still want to make those steep enough that, you know, we're saying at least 750 words for your category phrases, which is like this. You want to have 1,500 words or more. For your silo phrase, which would just be investment, you'd want to have at least 2,000 words or more. But just for that sake, for the sake of that, let's just say that, what is here's the thing, I wouldn't want to use the same slug, but I would just say what is, for example, and I could say what is an investment fund manager in the actual URL. But the point is, now I've got a very relevant silo term, I've got a category, and now I have a supporting article. Got an optimized slug here, and that's how I would use that, and then I'd build layers upon that. So there's another thing. If you don't want to do it that way, you could actually do what's called virtual theming, which is really just about using internal link structures to link from certain pages to other pages. And if you're using SEO Ultimate, we've got a really cool, you know, there's a tool that it's called the Deep Link Juggernaut, where it essentially allows you to add a keyword in one place. We call it instant post propulsion. And now every other page on the site is going to link to said page anytime that keyword is mentioned. So this is how you shift link weight. But the virtual theming, we talk about that, and we show you how to implement that type of site architecture, or some combination of the above. After that, a couple questions you need to ask yourself is, sometimes things are just super jacked up, and it's better to start fresh, you know? So at that point, you know, do you start over and consolidate your theme? Basically take your 10 pages that were all spread out. Do you use a rel canonical tag to a new page, or do you do a 301 redirect, meaning do I just kill those pages, put them somewhere new, and do a redirect? So we talk about things like that, structuring and redirects. Or do you virtually theme, meaning do you go back and just add internal links to all of your pages the way they are, cross your fingers and hope for the best? Now, I do want to show you a couple examples of site architecture. Let me go ahead and go back to this tool here. When we look at this, now that we've sort of touched on the different types, if you look at the word internet, for example, one of the most competitive keywords online. Okay, there's over 8 billion competing pages. Now, right now, I do have local results showing up for my local pack. There's obviously a number of different results, but the point I'm making here is you see that Wikipedia's internet page ranks. Okay, now they've got a combination of all 3 or 4 variations. They're using a subdomain for EN for English dot. They're using the Wikipedia.org. They're using Wiki for topicality, and they do this. They're keeping their site architecture relatively flat, and by doing this, it's pushing ranking factor back up to be redistributed to the other nodes, in which in this case are the category. So this is a silo term, and this is the category. So what they've done is for every time that they have the phrase you're targeting, it's really a category term, but they actually use that in their H1 tag. And they also are using virtual theming, where every time the keyword is mentioned on any other page in their site, it's now linking to that said page. For example, computer networks is linking to the computer networks page. Digital telecommunications is linking to said page, etc. But as a result of this creates a lot of topical weight. And this is what we're talking about. Once you understand how to do this, and you're doing this on purpose, you know, this is the idea where computer networks, a page that we clicked in Wikipedia, well, there they are. They get the featured snippet. They get, you know, I'm sure they're in all the people also asked, but they're also the #1 results. There's a number of ways to skin the cat as far as ways to target results, but that's sort of like what I was getting at, is that it's better to create intelligent site architecture by design. So that's some of the things that we talk about. And it also is different if you're looking at things like phone cases, when you're looking at commercial terms, and we're going to look at like Amazon, look at this case study, for example. Their cell phone cases page. I mean, this is a ridiculously competitive keyword. This doesn't even have backlinks because we're talking about, the fact is, this is a phrase, if we're trying to get ranked for this, we're talking about years. Let me show you this. And that simple exercise of just looking phrase match, nothing phenomenal here, but just a great tool just to show you a competitive threshold of what you're up against. Okay, so there's 8 million competing pages. So it's not years, but it's a very competitive keyword. Nonetheless, when we did the analysis on this page, there was no backlinks. And so, it's really just the weight of the site architecture. So anytime that you have shopping cart, for example, that has the ability to create distinction, at that point, you want to make sure those pages are indexed. You want to create a little more meat on the page. You notice how it's not just an image of a cell phone and something light. There's actually content. When you scroll below, every one of these, I'm sure they're hiding not hiding, but they have enough content on the page that it's creating a tipping point where all these relevant phrases that are here. So what I was getting at is that you really want to make sure that you can leverage the weight of your site architecture. Now, if I were to look at how many times they're using this in their site, we could see the number of instances. So 47,000 pages are dynamically linking to that from somewhere on the sidebar, and that's enough because every one of those pages has weight. And so this is an example of how you can leverage site architecture so that you don't really have to rely on backlinks. And so it's really sort of what we discussed before. This is how you want to essentially expedite your own authority, where Google starts to pay attention to you so that when you put things out, that's the main phrase. If you were looking at model numbers and things like that, they literally are just dominating the market. So those are some of the types of things that we cover in the site architecture intelligence module. All right. After that, we talked about the tactical content blueprint. So how competitive is the keyword? I wanted to show you guys a little trick that somebody showed me with SEMrush. And so you can actually, and then we'll show you some things that you can do with killer keywords, which is another network empire tool. But just so you know, inside the training, we literally have dozens of tools. So a lot of them are free. There's some that are paid. It's really up to you how much time you want to waste or invest, so to speak. So you could do a lot of this stuff manually. It would take a long time, or you can just use a paid tool and knock it out. So we like to use SEMrush, for example. And there's a way that you can actually use, go over to this. You can use, there's a new tool they've got, it's got the keyword gap, where you can basically place 3 different phrases inside. You can put 3 different websites or more inside of that. And so we typically use like WikiHow, Quora, and I used Amazon in this case. Then after that, I just added a filter with what and how. And now what this does is, instead of you having to figure out and go out and look at all the questions in the market, I'm just going to point it at the people that I know are going to dominate a market. And I'm saying, hey, basically, what are they ranking for? And out of that, it's only bringing me things that actually have search volume. So, this is one way that you can do that. Now, if I added another modifier, I could either eliminate things, but I just wanted to find out what kinds of questions that actually had search volume. So there's a lot of things you can see like that. So, you see how to figure out what to do with your life gets 880 searches a month. Who would have thought of that? But anyway, this is the point where we just show you a lot of little power hacks like that. Another thing you can do is use this tool to point at your competitors. And once you extract their keyword rankings, then we show you how to use some filters in Excel and filter out and find the keywords that actually have modifiers like best and leading. So a lot of cool training in that regard. We'll just literally walk you through and show you how to use that. Another tool that Marco had mentioned from before, which is called SimilarWeb. I've got it up over here. This is a really, really amazing tool where it essentially allows you to just point this thing at a few places, and it's using the Google API, the Google Keyword Suggest API again. And you can just start with the phrase, and after that, you let it run. Now you have the option of adding the suffixes here. You can do A to Z or A through ZZ, and you can see all the different phrases that it brings back. And so the real thing that I like is that after you find all these keywords and you want to find out which ones have search volume, we like to use killer keywords from Network Empire because it allows you to normalize the results. And after that, this is one of the only tools that I found anyway that allows you to import phrases from other places. And so as an example, I started off with the keyword investment fund. It found about 300 phrases. And then I went and I grabbed the keyword data from Answer the Public, and I grabbed those questions and placed it in there with the investment fund and investment fund manager. And after that, and Matt DeCruz does an amazing segment in the War Room. Now, the War Room is, it's not included with Bootcamp. It's a paid membership. I think it's like $97 a month. But that's really where we have the real, nitty gritty underground stuff that you're not going to really see anywhere else. Where we had Andrea Volpini from WordLift.io, who shared a presentation that he just gave at SMX Milan on artificial intelligence. It's the semantic web. We had Matt DeCruz walk us through how he uses killer keywords to build out silos. Now, this is a process that we used to charge our clients, I think it was about $2,500 for. And the drills would take, and we'd had to go into every keyword and drill and grab all the questions. I think it was like 80 hours of work. So Matt shows you a technique where you can do this in under an hour and build out a completely perfectly siloed blueprint, sort of like the one that I showed you over here with other clients. So the War Room is really worth it, man. It's ridiculous. So we're going to go into some tactics like that. We'll have a blueprint. So you can see that the main phrase here, for example, and I'll jump back to the example we had: anti-theft, security tags is the category, and then you can see that these are the supporting articles. So everything from security seals, the UHF RFID, EAS systems, merchandising tags, etc. And by doing that and putting everything in its proper place and creating that hierarchy, this is how you're conveying topical relevance to a search engine. And that's really the thing that we had talked about in those 3 secrets that we found that works extremely well. A lot of people go, oh, siloing doesn't work. Well, you're not doing it right. I'm telling you, the stuff still works. It's topical modeling. It's extremely effective. And so an example of how to do that in a very brief way would be to use a tool like this. What I like about this tool is that it literally has the ability to do deep inspections on the actual top competitors, but you also have, I believe there's about 6 different APIs. It uses APIs from Moz, it uses it from Ahrefs, it uses APIs from Majestic, as well as their own Bayesian algorithms that allow you to really quickly figure out what's going on. So right now, if I were to jump over to the filters, for example, and if I wanted to find out suggested silos, they already have some really cool algorithms right here where they show you the Bayesian algorithm where you can tweak filters here. And Matt goes through this in the War Room. But it's going to very quickly at this point show me these are the silos. Right after that, financial advisor, online accounting, small business financing. So these are the categories that are relevant based on the local aggregate relevance to the main phrase, meaning that they're extremely synonymically relevant. After that, if I were looking at building out supporting articles, for example, I could go over to another filter. Go to my tangent markets or golden niches. So you can see that those are tangent markets. I could find supporting articles or supporting keywords. So this really takes the guesswork. After you've actually went through and you've done all the competitive keyword research, at this point, when it's time to build it out in the site architecture intelligence blueprint, this is going to save you a lot of time. So, and you're dealing with things, not all of these have search volume, but the point is that you can filter by just tweaking the filters themselves to find out what you'd want to do. Now, if certain phrases don't have search volume, what I would typically do is I would include them on an in-depth article anyway, because it's part of the conversation. It creates topical depth. And that depth is very important for scaling authority. So just giving you a couple of other examples of some of the things that we show inside the training. So how am I doing so far, guys?
You're doing awesome, man.
I'm fascinated. Keep going.
Yeah.
All right, man.
I was just thinking, like, I haven't even been able to chime in because I'm trying to absorb it all.
Cool. So that's just sort of like, all right, let me see. We're in the site architecture intelligence section still. So, no, we've jumped beyond that. Hold on one second. So semantic relationship and organization, clearly defined theme. These are sort of some of the questions that had come up, like, is your content management system SEO friendly or labor intensive? Can you create different page templates for different segments? Can you customize sidebars or navigations with ease? So this sort of leads into another point. If I may jump over to another tool that you're going to actually get inside the training, I did build out a topical site example on one of our demo sites. I need to find it. I think it's over here. Use the SEO design framework. And this is the framework that I was telling you about. We actually started working on this thing back in 2006. And it's pretty much a ubiquitous design. It's got a drag and drop builder inside. It's going to allow you to basically create any kind of a look and feel that you want with the site, but it's extremely granular. Now inside, you have the ability to actually implement that website silo architecture. So here's an example of a site that we put together. And over here on my example page, I've created silo navigation. Now the thing about siloing or creating very specific topical site architecture is you don't want to bleed your themes, meaning you don't want to have it like link out and go to different places. And so one of the things that we do is, you'll notice if I click into a silo, you'll notice that I only see the categories that are relevant to it inside. So you can really ring fence this content structure and this linking structure in. So when you're in a category or when you're in a topic, for example, you're only going to see the supporting articles that are relevant. If you're in category 2, you only see category 2 articles, and you link up to the other categories, right? So this is a very powerful thing that you can do inside of the SEO design framework. And so it's extremely granular, but we've basically built the framework and the plugin to work in tandem, so that we have your global settings, which is basically how everything is going to work when you set it up for every page or post that's created that's new or that's set to default. And then on the page level, you have the ability to override settings. And so, for example, you can have the navigation on or off on a global. If I turned it off, the navigation would disappear, and I could turn it on a page-by-page basis or vice versa. I could basically turn off the breadcrumbs in one click. I can change the H1, the title tag from an H1 to an H2, or use none. Now, this is big because if you're an SEO, you know that in WordPress, the default tag for your title, whenever you type a title in, is your H1 tag. But say you don't want to do that because you want to leverage your on-page somehow and use a more specific title tag rather than the one that's, rather than using a 7-word phrase. Like that, where you could just make it none globally and then assign it to whatever you wanted on the page level, right? Another example of some really cool things. Let's just take a look at the page level settings, right? When you go over here on my display title, I can basically turn the title on or off. I can change it to my global default, which is set to. I can do H1, H2, or none. But this is another little tweak that that Matt DeCruz suggested that I included, because it's important to feed your silo pages, right? Or pardon me, to feed your categories. At this point, if I wanted to feed a real category for my silo page, I could basically make my page a link, add a custom title, and then after that, send my silo page down to my category level. So if the word investment fund manager was a category that I wanted to rank from investments, I could really say that anytime that the silo page itself would be linking to a page underneath it that I really want to rank, in fact, because typically silo phrases are just too competitive to get ranked. You're not going to rank for the word investment ever, but investment fund manager is what you want. And so you can pass that ranking factor along with an H1 tag. And so any links that get built to your silo page get built through said link. So there's all kinds of cool little tweaks like that. You have granular settings that you can basically turn on or off, comments, related posts, animations, etc. So it has a drag and drop builder. So it's built in where you can basically create your hero sections, and just like any drag and drop builder, you've got modules, you can add images and all that. So it's ready to go. And more importantly, like I said, we actually have this silo builder, and we are going to be releasing a version of the silo builder in SEO Ultimate Pro, which is coming out soon. We can sort of see how topical site architecture works in this regard. And we always suggest that if you're going after a real topic, you're better off having at least 3 categories and at least 5 supporting articles in each. And so these could be your questions and answers. This is your market defining phrase, so to speak, and then this is your parent keyword. But this is an example of something that I built out. It took me less than 10 minutes to do that. And I just wanted to show you how simple it was. And we also show you how to do that inside of WordPress if you don't have a plugin. So that's the other types of things that you're going to find in the site architecture intelligence training. All right, now I'm only to the second tab here. I know it's a lot of information. but just trying to give you guys a little bit of insight about what's inside in here.
Yeah, it's quite in depth, man. I mean, that's why I was saying the course is like that too, guys. If you think this presentation's in depth, wait till you see the inside of the course.
Yeah, it's pretty much we're just skimming the top right now.
Yep, that's it.
So
it's very well organized.
Yeah. So in the on-page SEO ops, we go into some techniques like how to mine the best modifiers for metadata, and we use SEMrush to do that. And there's a really simple and easy technique that takes about 5 minutes. It's going to reveal all the PPC ads, and from there you can find the best modifiers and combinations, because now, once again, with the extension of the characters that you can use for your titles and meta descriptions, it's really important to do a call to action to get that click. It's not always about where you rank on the page. If the other guys have duds for titles and meta descriptions, you can really do well by just paying attention to that and going back and really tweaking those metrics. Once again, don't leave it to chance. Just like MMA, don't leave it to the judges. You want the knockout. So we talk about optimizing your header tags, implementing jump links with things like H3. And I'll show you an example of that. This was a test that we did because our plugin uses structured data, schema, and things of that nature. Excuse me. And so we wanted to rank for what are rich snippets. And so I applied the exact structure and strategy that I tell you about for what are rich snippets, right? And we are right here. We fluctuate between the number 6 position and whatnot, but we have 0 backlinks to this page. This was done in April. In about 2 months, it just popped up there. It's been there ever since. And here's what we did. So we talked about different ways that you can use header tags, and you can see that we're using topical site architecture with, WordPress and what are rich snippets and why you should use them. After that, we've got relevant internal link structures, but we also have jump links. So when I click the link, it goes to the section of the page. If you'll notice, that jump link also has what the topic is. So we show you how to sort of implement that structure, where as a result of this, not only is it good for usability for your individuals to find the topic or section that they're looking at, but it's also an in-depth article. And we touched upon all the topical nodes of using the tactics that we found inside of the tactical content blueprint. And now we used an example of what I was talking about before, of having a question that was educational, what are rich snippets, to then show them something as soon as they go to the bottom of the page. We're saying, well, you can add them now instantly without coding, and now it takes you over to an advertisement or something that's going to show you how you can buy our plugin to do the same. So that's an example of how you can leverage questions. It's not just about being the nice guy and trying to answer something. It's really about creating something that's in depth, providing real information and knowledge, and going in depth. Now, this is up against the other competitors have 3,000 to 4,000 words on their pages. I think I tipped in at 997 words or something like that, and it's still on the first page, no backlink. So this is what we talked about. Topicality matters, and it's really how you sort of write your content structure. So we go over things like that as well. All right. Let's see what else here. So mapping internal links, we talked about that inside of Deep Link Juggernaut. I can show you how that works, so to speak. Anytime that you have a page or a post, right? I could literally edit this page and say this were for investment funds or investment fund manager, right? I could literally come into this area, scroll down to my SEO Ultimate Plus area, go to my links, and then I would just put the keyword that I wanted to rank for. And as a result of that, anytime that keyword were mentioned anywhere else on any other page, and I can actually dial in some rules, for example, to make this page the new destination. And by doing that, you shift the link weight, you shift the priority. The more links that are linking to a page, the more important it's viewed in Google. So you have the ability to sculpt your own link graph. And you can see over here in our modules, if I go to the Deep Link Juggernaut, I can look at some of the rules. That one thing that I added, it's telling me that, this keyword goes to my silo page. If I were to jump over to my content link settings, I can determine what kind of post types I'm going to allow auto links in. I can then create quantity restrictions. I can say, hey, don't add any more than X amount of links per page. We typically suggest that you don't exceed 1 link for every 100 words. It's a nice link to text ratio. So if you've got 500 words on a page, then you can go up to 5 links, etc. So after that, we have a filter that if you have the same keyword, different keywords that are linking to a certain page, it will eliminate the two links going to the same page. So we're saying don't link the same anchor text any more than one time per page. For this one particularly, it would, if you had multiple instances of the keyword, it would link only once. For this one, we're saying don't link to the same destination any more than one times per page. And you also have the ability, if you really want to get like uber specific and granular, you can literally go in and map out a dampener column to say, I only want to link this keyword 35 times, etc. And we did that because if you'll note, the way that we built our blueprints, we left nothing to chance. We were building these things out in such a way that we knew that we needed to have a certain amount of backlinks, and we didn't want to tip past that. So suggested backlinks, we would just set the filter at whatever that was. That's how we would map things out. So it just goes to show whenever there's a tactic that we're using or something that we learn, we typically integrate it into a tool so that way it just becomes part of a process. And then these processes are literally interchangeable. So that's an example of one simple tactic that is relevant and related to this example of mapping your internal links. After that, if you wanted to add some structured markup to the page, for example, we could show you how easy that would be. So let's just say that I went back to my page. I go down to my SEO Ultimate Plus area here. And you guys, just so you know, you get a 20 site license as part of this promotion, which is usually $249. So you can see right here that my rich snippet type, we have everything from article, news article, blog post, local business. If you have a course, anytime you change that information, the required fields are here. And when you hover over them, it tells you what to place in here. And if you use this and then you use the Google structured data testing tool, you'll see everything validates. And so it's extremely powerful. So for local business, for example, we've been able to secure the 6-pack rankings, or excuse me, the local rankings, just as a result of making sure that you got your name, address, phone number, the same that you have in your Google My Business. You're using the Google Maps page short link in this URL, and you're filling that information out. You publish it, it validates. Google then acknowledges you as an entity, and this really does help your local business. But instead of having to do that with schema markup, you can do it all from this area, just from following these fields. So there's a lot of cool stuff like that that you're going to get access to. Does that make sense?
That's a great feature there, because that's something that people struggle with all the time, creating the structured data markup, and that the plugin just automates it for you guys. It makes it so simple.
So between that and the ability to create silos, as well as you have like 30 different skins that you can use inside of the framework, it just goes back to just how dedicated are you to conquering your market. I mean, honestly, if you've got time and you have a sincere desire to learn, we pretty much lay it out in such a way that it just literally makes sense. It's Bob is your uncle simple. Like I said, I try to keep the jargon to a minimum. If I do say something that's a little over the top, then I'll say that, well, and I'll use an example just so you can really break it out. So you can see that there's well over 20 videos in the first module alone. So I did that because I didn't want people to go, hey man, I want to get access to week 2. We broke these into weekly modules. And so week 2, this drops. It shows you a deep dive of how Wikipedia and Amazon leverage site architecture. I use a shopping cart example. And then there's another site that we showed where they were able to rank without backlinks. They had, I think, over 400 keywords after a month and a half of publishing the site. So we go through that and show you how we did that. So yeah, man, this is some really cool stuff. Now, since you did stick around to the end, I did promise to share with you one of our other competitors. And so, or not competitors, clients rather, excuse me. Let me do this. Let me go ahead and kick
You
this
can
off.
Share your competitors too. We got some people on here that'll take care of them for you.
Yeah, I believe it, man. I believe it. I believe it. We just go here, jump through. This is the part where it's not sexy, man. You can't just edit it out in a live webinar. So what can I say? I'm a rookie at this stuff, but
it's all right, man.
All right.
You're doing a swell job.
So here's an example. One of our clients, Sonia Koch, contacted me, and the site was an absolute mess, man. It was, I don't know who did it before, but it was sort of jacked up. And so we said, let's just start from scratch. We probably got into like eight consultations and really just mapped it out. We created a blueprint for her. We decided to focus on And this is really a competitive niche. It's real estate in Los Angeles. I mean, you're up against like Trilio or what's the Zillow, excuse me, and a lot of other cool, I mean, very strong authority sites like that, right? So she did have some authority, but we really couldn't leverage anything that was done. So we decided to focus on mid-century modern as the silo. So mid-century modern architecture was the thing. And so inside of architecture, we created all the different architects. And I'll show you sort of what we did. But the process was this. We created an in-depth blueprint. After that, we rebuilt the entire site, and we used website silo architecture to create that topical hierarchy that we've been clamoring about for this whole webinar. But, you know, the stuff just works. After that, she's an amazing writer, so she created in-depth content. We added structured markup, and the way that we did that is we use WordLift. And so we go into how to use WordLift, and there's an extensive amount of training in there, as well as a special offer to get 30 days free for that plugin. But if you've ever tried to literally create structured markup in an article, it's painstaking. So WordLift does it like pretty much like what you just saw with the deep link juggernaut. You add a few phrases, or you highlight a word, and then you click a couple things, it's done. That's what we did on this site. And then after that, we just let the site mature. And so as a result of that, we came back about a year later. She was just doing her thing. You know, we didn't really suggest building any backlinks or anything like that. But I'll just give you an example. Let me find her now. I looked a minute ago, and it was 500 keywords the time that we did the last webinar. Now she's up to 700 plus phrases ranking. So she's got an additional 200 keywords that came in over the last few months. Let me just go.
That's really awesome, because I remember that. To see you now ranking for a bunch of additional keywords. That's really cool.
Yeah, 200 more phrases. So let me just there it is. All right, let's try this. My poor computer's at the end of its it's like, dude, you've got about 75 windows open. I don't know if you realize this, but and you're streaming. All right, there we go. This drill previous to the webinar. And so I think there was something like she now has 733 keywords ranking. And so I'll show you what we did in a second, but just so it's clear, the objective is really to focus on things that were related to mid-century. And you can see that mid-century modern homes, mid-century homes Los Angeles, mid-century, all these phrases are now encroaching, you know, the 10 position. And you can see other things like mid-century modern real estate. So it's stemmed, and you'll see that the page that's actually ranking for this now is their CMS. And so it's pretty cool, because it's not easy to rank content when things are typically very thin like that. You know, thin content, this is like, let me see, there they are right there. So thin content typically occurs whenever you're using like a multiple listing service. It's pretty much the same thing that other people are using. So the only thing that's giving her that competitive advantage here is the fact that we built other ways to leverage authority. So we used the deep link juggernaut tool to make sure that the other topical nodes are being nurtured by all that link flow. So this is an example of how we talked, you know, I showed you earlier how Amazon leveraged their site architecture and using 47,000 instances of the keyword phone cases to said phone case page to rank. Well, we're doing the same thing. We're saying, hey, by the way, we're trying to get everything that's related to architecture. And then we did the neighborhoods. And so if I just show you the way that her site architecture is mapped out, we focused on mid-century modern, homes for sale, architecture. And then we actually, in the neighborhood pages, you can see that we broke out every one of the neighborhood pages. Now, those are essentially like their own category. And then that's about it. And you'll notice that when you see things like this, this is actually WordLift. And so it's showing you, this is basically like a Wikipedia style. It's like a Wikipedia effect, which is showing you when you see these little tildes, like Walter Gropius, right? This is talking about one of the architects, and it gives you the option. She knows exactly who this is. She wrote about it on purpose, but then you have the ability to then curate data from the basically linked data graph. So, you know, places like RedLink and Google's knowledge graph, you're doing the same thing. You have the ability to create your own triples. And now what we've done is we've used a canonical tag for all these things, and we've referenced the pages that we want to rank. So these pages are not getting hit with duplicate content penalties. They're producing really sticky content for an end user, you can go on the site and get lost because you learn, like, what's Bauhaus? It's like, oh, it's commonly known as this in the School of Germany. And like, cool. It was founded by this individual. So you really get the power of entities, which is who, what, where, how. And when you understand semantic data and how it all works together and how you can leverage it like this without having to do much other than just make sure that you actually add the plugin and write content strategically, this is a very powerful thing. So as a result of doing this, we were able to basically expedite that authority so that, here's an example. She wrote about architects. She wrote about different places. The Wong House is a, okay, look at that. For in Broadmatch, 97 million competing pages. There she is, number 3. You got LA Curbed, and then some really, realtor.com is down here. These are some strong sites, man. And so here's the point. We talked about topicality. So if you know how to put your site architecture together and you're using things like linked data, and here it is, here's her little article that's outranking realtor.com on a topic that's extremely relevant because it's designed to rank for that. So that's sort of how we approached using these types of tactics. This is not backlinks. When you think about it, using co-citation with linked data, it's extremely powerful because this is what the bots actually use to score and determine relevance. So as far as they're concerned, this is an authority site by virtue of the fact that she's created co-citation with all these different things on architecture, as well as if you go to any of the neighborhood pages, it's in-depth content that's talking about things that are close by. It talks about the modern homes and real estate would be the H tag, for example. But then you can see all the other things, the Muse buying a home, local grub and things to do. So by creating real useful content, talks about the LA River, Griffith Park, all these things are being introduced as part of the conversation. And this creates tremendous relevance. So that's just another example of how we leverage that. With the other individual, let me just take a look at some of the phrases they were ranking for. We just basically created website silo architecture in their site. And then we had our writers write in-depth content using the tool that we suggest in the tactical content blueprint that allowed us to really find out all the nodes of relevance that somebody would need to integrate into an article. And as a result of that, they ended up ranking for all those variations of, let me see, all the anti-theft tags, etc. So you can see that this page right here, this one page that's ranking for 35, 40 keywords at this point without backlinks, was all done as part of this process. So that's my 3 secrets. Just going back to topicality, putting things in their proper place in the site architecture. And we didn't even have the ability to change anything else in the site. We just literally added a quick silo. We added, I think, maybe 10, 15 articles. We wrote it in such a way that we disambiguated it so that search engines knew exactly what it's about. All these phrases. This article, like I said, now has over 40 plus keywords driving traffic to the site. So it's just how you think about skinning the cat,
Yeah, that's
awesome,
awesome, man.
So I guess we're at that point now where I really appreciate that you guys have, if I can get to the appropriate slide. I don't know if there's a way to, it's at that point now where it's, rather than continuing to talk about this and talk about this and talk about this, it's really about, determining if you're a doer or a dabbler. So if you're a dabbler, it's probably not for you, but if you're a doer and you want to get in there and get your hands dirty and have an actual framework where you can actually do things and have a way to produce the results in a systematic format, then this is a really good course that I would suggest. And so if you can agree, it's been time well spent. Now, we obviously can't cover everything in an hour. And so in which case, what I'd like to do is at least share the offer that we presented for you today. Actually, the bootcamp course is typically $997. We've shaved off $500 off the course, and so it's $497. And we're actually going to throw in the SEO Ultimate Plus 20 site license. So it's a $249 value. We're going to throw in the framework as well. And then for the first 10 people that take advantage of this, I'm going to throw in a 1-hour consultation as well. And so if you'd like to take advantage of that and come do some push-ups with me over in SEO Bootcamp, learn some SEO, whip your marketing team into shape and go out there and kick some ass, then this is the way you do it.
And guys, we're going to throw in Content Kingpin, which is basically our curating, how to curate content training course and how to outsource the vast majority of it. And it's pretty much a full content marketing system. And we're going to throw that in as a bonus if anybody picks it up. All you got to do is after you picked it up, reach out to us at support@semanticmastery.com and we'll get you squared away. Okay.
Nice.
If I can just add the amount of time that you have to spend on this, right? I mean, you're not going to go in here into this SEO bootcamp for an hour or two and expect that you're going to go through every video and apply everything that Jeffrey has so thoroughly gone through. I mean, that's like taking, again, our RYS Reloaded Academy we have nearly 200 videos.
Jesus.
And expect to go through that. Yeah, I'll do it in a couple of days. No, and you have better things to do with your time, which is why we're throwing in a way for you to produce quality content.
Yes.
Well, not you, but you should be having people who work for you producing that content, because your hour is worth a whole lot more than the $5-10 you're going to pay that person for the hour. Exactly. I mean, you have to do it. It's ROI, right? It's basic return on investment. Where are you going to invest that hour? In training a VA to do all of this, or in trying to do it yourself? So that's my take on this. By all means, get someone to do this for you.
Absolutely. But then you have the structure. You know, hey man, these are the questions. They're out there finding the questions. They're out there making content suggestions. They're the ones that are putting together all the mashups for these in-depth articles, you know, the 10 questions with 300 words each that answer that question with the appropriate markup that you're adding from schema, that you're using jump links with, that you're making sure that you're adding structured markup to. I mean, there's a lot in there, man, but this stuff is ridiculous. We're not even talking about what I showed you today did not involve any backlinks. That's the thing. In fact, you know, myself and the other guy, John Britsios, that we had in the war room, anytime we get backlinks, we disavow them. We don't want them. We don't need them. You don't need it if you create enough citation within your own site. So I'm just telling you. And if you want to, you know, it's powerful, man. You don't really need backlinks to do a lot of the things you think to get ranked.
And here's the thing, you know, and I said this the previous two webinars. I forgot to say this at the beginning this time, but guys, those of you watching, how much more difficult has it become recently to get good backlinks? I mean, think about it. You know, a lot of the backlinks that we used to build are downright toxic now and can actually do more harm than good. And it's very difficult to get good backlinks. And so this is one way to mitigate that, or to reduce the need for them, or to eliminate it altogether, as Jeffrey's shown. But that's to have the stronger your site architecture is, the better it will respond to any off-page SEO.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, if you and here's the thing, you have ultimate control on page, right? And not so much for off page. So, you know, if something changes or you need to tweak something on site to kind of regain rankings or to improve rankings, things like that, you have control to be able to do that on your own site with your own structure. Depending, you know, you can go in and add additional content. You can create new silos. You can go deeper within your silo or add more width. So additional topical relevance. There's all different kinds of stuff that you can do. But when it comes to backlinks, what do? I mean, a lot of the times you build backlinks, you can't even go back and edit those backlinks again. So the only thing you're left with is being able to disavow them. And again, this is why I said I would rather spend the time on the front end with on the website itself than doing all the off-page SEO stuff. And then obviously you can use some of the off-page SEO tactics that we teach, like RYS Academy.
Which are very powerful. Very powerful. And together they're gangbusters, guys. They're gangbusters. We have a client I can't even reveal, but we got them ranked for a competitive keyword. I think it took less than 2 months from a brand new site. So you don't, this whole thing, oh, my site's been around forever. Yeah. It's taking forever to get right. It doesn't, you do it right the first time, man, or just sort of scrap that aspect of it and build it properly and stand back, man. Throw an RIS stack at it with a syndication network or two, and you're done. That's right. You combine it with this stuff. Powerful, man. Lethal.
And that's the thing. I mean, if you think about, syndication network, and all you do is produce content for the site, and it starts ranking for all these different keywords, and then something incredibly competitive, you throw a drive stack at it, and boom, you've got what you need. There's your combination.
Exactly. You're giving it spider bait and you've got the on page. So really this is the out of the gate, get your site in shape, get up to snuff. I'm not saying don't pay other people to do SEO, but I'm saying there's a lot of things that you can do. And if you're a business owner and you don't know what you're paying somebody for, shame on you. You know what I mean? You honestly should at least be aware of some of the things that you can use to create more ROI for your business. And so, like I said, it's the difference of going into a store or to a mechanic and saying, the engine thingy sounds weird. Can you fix it? And they're going to give you a new engine or take advantage of you versus you knowing exactly what's wrong and saying, hey, look, we really need to scale more content. Let's find some more things with questions and answers that we can leverage to get more traffic to the site. And after we do that, we can do a redirect to, to our commercial page or whatever. So it's just the more knowledge you have, knowledge is power. And if you have a team, it's a protocol and process. After that, it just becomes standard operating procedure. Whenever you create new content, you just check for these things. You say, there's an opportunity to add, there's an opportunity to add some markup there. Oh, we can do a deep link over here. We can add, We can link to that .gov over there. We can add a video here. So it's not rocket science, but it's extremely powerful. So
awesome.
And this deal won't last forever. So just saying.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank Jeffrey because at the beginning he just validated what we've been saying for over 2 years. Fuck Google. Stop fearing.
Yeah, right.
Google.
Right. They want you to buy ads. They don't want you
why the fuck are you scared of Google when you can do this?
Yeah,
this
exactly.
Kind of thing. And yeah, it's go buy ads. Be scared of Google. Go buy ads, or say fuck Google and do the things that they don't want you to do the right way.
See, this is why I had this little graphic right here. This is what most people think. They're scared of the animals. You don't have to be scared of the animals, man.
No,
you can tame the animals.
Dominic Multoon, he's one of our mastermind members. He says it's an awesome training, guys. Plus you get plugins and themes. Gone through it all once and going through certain videos 3 and 4 times. Powerful stuff. Great job, Jeff. No brainer.
Oh man, thank you, brother. Thank you, Dominic. I appreciate it.
So.
Awesome.
Okay, guys. Well, we don't really have any questions coming through. I think everybody's head hurts probably.
Let's go. Give them time to digest it. Well, like I said, I'm really, really thankful for the opportunity to basically be a part of the broadcast over here again. Really, really grateful.
Anytime, man. You're welcome to come back anytime, Jeffrey. In fact, we're probably going to schedule to come on for a guest appearance on our Hump Day Hangouts here sometime soon because we'd love to have you on and help answer some questions for an hour one day.
Oh, that'd be great. I'd love it.
Awesome.
Absolutely. All right, man.
We're going to take you up on it. Then I'll have Adam reach out, man. And we appreciate your time today, Jeffrey. Everybody go pick it up while you got the opportunity, while it's discounted, and you'll get our bonus as well. Remember, we're going to throw in Content Kingpin. Just reach out to us, support@semanticmastery.com once you made the purchase, and we will get you access to that right away. If you have any questions, reach out to us at support. We'll certainly try to provide you with the answers. Okay. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks everyone.
All right, man. Take care.